Welcome back to another video, and in this case, as you've seen in the title, we are reviewing the iPhone 16 Pro and iPhone 16 Pro Max. We are going to tackle both phones because we got a chance to luckily being able to test the phones for quite some time. We've have some interesting findings, interesting opinions. I personally think that it's an interesting review. I'm really excited to talk about the details that we've discovered on the iPhone, and you've seen it all over social media. It is everywhere right now because it's Apple season, so it is going to be on your For You page whether you like it or not. But we also want to take an approach that's unique because this iPhone is unique, not in the thing that you're expecting, but it has been my favorite iPhone review in a while. So it'll be fun.
The key there was favorite iPhone review.
Oh, I know what
Not
I said.
favorite iPhone.
I know
favorite
what I said.
iPhone review. Couple things before we start jumping into the details, right? So we are going to be making this review from the perspective of both Pro model iPhones, right? So I've been using the 16 Pro Max for some time, and David's been using the regular 16 Pro for some time. And for the review, we also don't want to silo in on like one particular experience with this phone, right? We don't want to ultra focus on just the camera or just iOS 18. Right. It's going to still be a comprehensive hardware product review.
It is.
Right?
It is.
If for any particular reason you want to see us silo in on something particular, such as iOS 18, or just the cameras, right? You want us to go into significantly more detail on something about the experience, let us know in the comments, and we'll work on putting together like a full-fledged review. But for this particular video, it's going to be the whole 16 package of the iPhone 16 Pro, not just one particular aspect of the experience.
100%. So just let us know.
Yeah.
You
ready to get started?
Let's get to it.
Let's do it. Now, I will say I upgraded from a 15 Pro Max to the 16 Pro Max. And it felt like, you seen the meme where the guy has a shirt on and he gets the same shirt? It felt just like the meme, right? So I took the phone out and I was like, this
it's an iPhone.
I feel right at home. This is an iPhone. So the materials are obviously going to be exactly the same as last year, right? You're going to have titanium around the enclosure, glass on the front and back. It's an iPhone, so it is very, very well built, high quality, right? Like
that's not going to change.
Yeah. The phone is slightly larger dimensionally. Right. And slightly heavier compared to last year, but it's not anything you're going to notice because it's predominantly titanium in the enclosure. It still feels like remarkably light for a phone this size. Right. So, and then it has all the things that you're expecting whenever it comes to flagship build quality, right? The IP68 water and dust resistance. And they also upped the wireless charging speed on MagSafe up to 25 watts.
Finally. And even then, it's not amazing, but it's better than what they had before.
But outside the color, I felt right at home with this one.
Well, if there's something they're good at, is making sure that you feel familiar with your phone. And honestly, even touching on the size of the phone, the display also got bigger. It's not a crazy increment on the size, but we were going from, on the Pro, normal Pro, 6.1 to 6.3 inches, and on the Pro Max from 6.7 to 6.9. So it is maximizing not only the fact that the phone is slightly bigger, but the bezels are also slightly thinner. I think that's a great take, a great adjustment for the new phone, but the resolution is still the same. So you are going to have the same display. You're going to have the same resolution, the same pixels, the pixel density. It's going to be the typical ProMotion display that you're used to on your iPhone 15 Pro, 14 Pro, and so on. So outside of that, there's not a lot of difference. But if you like it, you're going to like this one too.
It's familiar. And I will say, I can't speak on the experience of upgrading from the regular 15 Pro to the 16 Pro, but I can speak on 15 Pro Max to 16 Pro Max. And the difference in screen size is noticeable right out of the box.
I'll tell you this. I came from a 15 Pro Max to a 16 Pro. The only reason I got the 15 Pro Max last year is because the extra camera, the 5x telephoto, and it's a good size. If anything, I'm glad that I got the smaller one because I don't like super big phones. So
You've always preferred the smaller.
Even though the 15 Pro
the smaller phones.
Max was an okay size, now that 16 Pro is even bigger. The 16 Pro Max is even bigger. I'm glad I went for the 16 Pro, and the transition hasn't been that bad. I think if you're considering going smaller, I think this is the time because you're not making a big adjustment because it's a less of a difference now than it's ever been. So,
but the bump in screen size on the Pro Max is noticeable to the point where even if you had like an edge-to-edge screen protector, it's not gonna fit.
You got to buy a couple of things.
Yeah, so it is a noticeable bump, at least from a Pro Max perspective. I can say that. Yeah.
Now, the biggest thing that we've seen change internally is a new A18 Pro chip. And I don't know, it's really interesting because these takes are always so hard to explain because we've gone to the point, and we say this every review.
Yeah.
We've gone to the point that the speed and performance of a smartphone has gone to the stage where yes, there's improvements and you can run 100 benchmarks and you're going to see better numbers every year that a new phone comes out. But you're not going to see the real world application of those differences, of those improvements. Especially Apple. We're looking at a company that's made their own internal hardware since the first phone and their internal software since the first phone. So they perfected their system to the point that, yes, it is a better chip, but I'm just taking their word for it because everything I'm throwing at it, it's fine right now, but it was also fine on the 15 Pro and it was fine on the 14 Pro. So it's one of those things that it will depend on your specific use case for the iPhone 16 Pro or the Pro Max. But most likely you're not going to see any issues. And that's a good thing. It's just really hard to explain and be specific when it comes to the things that this phone is capable of and the things that it's not.
Yeah. When it comes to the iPhone specifically, however long it's been since Apple implemented ProMotion displays is how long it's been since I've noticed any type of performance bump from generation to generation, right? So like I didn't notice anything going from 14 Pro Max to 15 Pro Max. And I've experienced no difference in what I can visually see from a performance perspective going from 15 Pro Max to 16 Pro Max now.
And it's their normal daily use now.
Yeah, and it always cracks me up whenever I watch the Apple keynotes because they always talk about these like big performance numbers that they achieve whenever they bring out new like silicon for their internals, right? And it's just like, okay, that's great, but we're probably not going to be able to see that unless you run actual benchmarks like David said. And some of it could potentially be because iOS 18 is still so new and there's
empty.
And there's so many even just small things that are missing right now on iOS 18 that I honestly thought at least some of them were going to launch with the phone. Like at the very least, and I'm so sorry if I set off your phone, but at the very least, the new Siri animation.
Right.
When you push and hold the power button, the whole
even if it was
glowing effect, right? That's not here yet on iOS 18, right? And there are cool features that are here, but so many of the big features that we were expecting to see. Obviously, Apple Intelligence is still a while away. And even if that was here, it's not exclusive to the 16 Pro. The 15 Pros are going to get them. The regular 16 should get them and stuff like that too. So there's not a lot to write home about from a software perspective. The performance is fantastic, but from a software perspective, there's not a lot here to elaborate on.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think even going back to the way that it's performing, the battery is something that they also pride themselves on speaking on how it's improved from last generations. And now here's I'll say this before we get into the details on the battery, because it could be whatever I'm about to say. It could be that they need to optimize the software a little bit better, or it could be that my use case scenario is different because I did go from a 15 Pro Max to a 16 Pro, so the size is smaller. But my personal use is that I have noticed that they do need to optimize the phone a little bit better. My personal use, when I first started to use the phone, I would do different tests just to see how the battery will perform, whether it's using it a lot with screen on or leaving something running in the background. My biggest thing that I noticed is the fact that personally, on the last phones that I've used in the last years, I would leave the phone unplugged and overnight, it would barely drop any battery charge. You can leave it at 100 and you would wake up, it was at 96. You can leave it at 50, wake up and it's at 45. It wasn't that big of a difference. But this phone, when I would leave it unplugged overnight, 8 hours, it would drop at least 10%.
I was going to say, he was texting me through our testing period saying over 10%. Yeah, overnight drop.
I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that they just need to optimize the software. In a future software update, will fix this problem. Because the battery, it is bigger. The physical size of the battery is bigger, but I don't know if that's going to make much of a difference.
Yeah. And David knows this throughout my history of buying phones.
I've
always gravitated to the larger phones for two reasons. I have big hands, so I always like the larger phones. I still even find it difficult to type on certain phones like the Z Flips and like the Z Folds and stuff because of how small and narrow they are. But I also gravitate to the larger phones. Why? Because they always have the largest battery, right? Which is something that's super crucial for me. The 15 Pro Max had gotten to a point where I was charging it at least once a day. At least. And I checked my battery health before upgrading to this one. It was at 90% after 1 year. So it's not too bad.
No, it's normal.
But still something that I needed to charge once a day, and my battery life has improved on the 16 Pro Max. I don't know if I'm ready to say that this is like the battery champion though, because of the 13 Pro, right?
That one was amazing.
That was the like iPhone battery king whenever it was out. But it's still very good. I'm not having any issues getting to a day's worth of use with this phone. But I will say I get to the day's worth of use, and I only charge my phone when it's needed. I don't charge it overnight just because, right? I only charge it when it's needed. But I will say I wake up the following morning and I'm in the 30s.
Yeah.
Or like high 20s. And at that point in time, I'm like, okay, I have to charge it, especially if I have to go to the office. Right. Or if I know I'm not going to be at my house for an extended period of time. Apple claimed that these were like the best battery life ever achieved in an iPhone. But the key there was that the only metric they gave you was video playback. And that's not how everyone uses their phone. Yeah. So
it'll be interesting, especially once the new software updates with Apple Intelligence drop. That is going to be a heavier use on the battery. So we can only hope that it gets better, but we'll see once it actually comes out.
Yeah. But so far, battery has been meh.
Okay.
Good?
I think good.
Decent.
Good. I'll give it good.
Okay. You ready to talk about some cameras?
Let's talk about cameras.
All right. The cameras were the cameras, when I was watching the keynote, I was just like, are they just finding ways to just like rebrand like last year's camera?
Apple's really good at making something sound like it's something amazing, but it's the same thing as the previous year.
Yeah, so let's just run through the specs real quick, and then I know you have your own opinions on this. So,
I do.
So spec-wise, 48 megapixel Fusion camera, right?
Yep.
That's the wide-angle lens, and Apple's calling it Fusion on the 16 Pro this year.
They've been watching a lot of Dragon Ball.
Yeah, 48. Yeah, Fusion megapixel, right?
Yeah.
12 megapixel periscope telephoto. That's the one that has the 5 times optical zoom.
Right.
Right. Which the 5x optical, by the way, is now available on the regular 16 Pro.
Yeah.
Last year that was exclusive to Pro Max.
Yep.
Right. And it's
really
now
glad.
Yeah. Now it's available on 16 Pro as well. And then we have a 48 megapixel ultra wide.
Yeah.
Right. Which, when you look at the specs on paper, the 48 megapixel ultra wide was the only bump in megapixel count, right? Last year on the 15 Pro Max, we had a 12 megapixel ultra wide. That's now been bumped to 48. But what are your thoughts on Fusion camera? Fusion camera.
Here's the thing before we get into the details of our experience with taking pictures. One, we do want to reiterate that if you do want to see a full-fledged, in-depth camera test on the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max, let us know. Drop it in the comments, and we're so happy to make that because it would be a lot of fun.
Or even comparisons to like other flagship phones. 100%. Like I still have the S24 Ultra,
right? Or like, the Pixel and whatever. Yeah. We can definitely do that. But what I find really unique is the fact that Apple has now focused, like Google, on their computational photography, and they're focusing a lot on the software side of things when it comes to taking pictures. And one thing I noticed, and I think is people have said this before, but one thing I've noticed when it comes to the way that they design now the camera app is that they're allowing you to create your own style of pictures. So that's with the photographic styles. I think it's really cool because there have been, different applications that have used the different styles that come with the iPhone 16 Pro. But my problem with something like that, and even though it's great, even though it works, even though you do get great results, it's the fact that there's a lot of pressure on the person taking the picture, that if you're not familiar with changing tones and changing your exposure and making really in-depth editing things on your picture, you're not going to get the same result as a person that's more proficient with a professional camera. We've kind of gone away from your phone takes amazing pictures and you don't have to do anything. You just got to press the shutter button. Now there's more controls, which that's great, but it does make it a little more complicated for those that are not familiar with camera terminology or just being able to change settings and see what is actually changing in your picture. Now, outside of that, one thing that I've noticed when it comes to taking pictures, I did take pictures with the 15 Pro Max and the 16 Pro. There's a slightly brighter feeling of the new pictures on the 16 Pro. The overall image, it is slightly brighter, with the darks being maybe grainy and noisy at times. But I also noticed the opposite, where the 16 Pro will take highs and balance them out and not be as bright as the 15 Pro. So HDR gets really interesting when it comes to the 16 Pro, but it will depend on the way that you use those photographic styles and the way you change those settings after you take the picture. Now, you also got to consider that because of all these settings that are being saved on your pictures will get heavier. And it does allow you to go back. If you take it in a specific style, you can go back and put it back to the default.
That's accurate.
But I think you see your default pictures, you're not going to want your default pictures. The photographics also great, but you're going to start getting used to editing your pictures and realizing that the camera is not amazing. It's a software that makes it amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is really comprehensive. And out of the two of us, David's the camera guy. Like, he enjoys that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I am very much, you've known this for the longest time, I'm very much, I want to point, shoot, take a good photo, right?
Personally, on a smartphone, you should be able to do that.
Yeah.
You should be able to just, hey, I don't want to think about it twice. I just want to take a picture and make sure that it comes out good.
Yeah. And that's always been the thing for me. And I remember, as I was like, when we initially had gotten these phones some time back and I was going through the setup process, I opened up the camera app and it showed me the modes.
Right.
Do you remember that? Like, right away.
And you have to swipe.
Yep. And you had to swipe. I was like, what is this, bro? Just like,
let me use my camera.
Yeah, I was like, just give me the default mode or whatever it is, right? And then if I take the photo, I expect the photo to come out great, especially on the pro caliber iPhone, right?
Exactly.
I'm not the type of guy that I want to adjust a whole bunch of things whenever I take a photo, but I do prefer to have the best camera setup so I can capture those moments as vividly as I saw them, right?
Right.
So I can definitely see it getting kind of exhausting for some people that just wanna point and shoot. And we haven't even talked about, right, the new edition, which is the camera button.
And the camera button is great. I think that is my favorite feature of the iPhone 16 Pro. But even then, I was telling you, whenever I was testing out the phone at first, it's a great tool. It's amazing that you now have the ability to use your phone as a digital camera where you don't have to touch the screen.
Yeah.
But it's only usable when you need it. And I don't find myself going out of my way to, hey, I need to take a picture now. But when I need it, it's great. So it's a cool application and it's a great tool.
Yeah.
But it's gonna change your world. It's not gonna rock anything.
Yeah.
You know?
It is very, very circumstantial.
Right.
And I mean, if you want me to be completely honest with you, I've actually accidentally triggered it while I'm taking photos on accident, more so than using it. Like, whenever I do this and I go to take a photo,
you're like pressing
my finger is on the button as I go to take a photo, and then it tries to like adjust the zoom or like the depth of field if it's like portrait or whatever, because it is pressure sensitive, right? So you can light press to alter certain aspects of how you take the photo, and then you can hard press to take the actual photo, right? So even if you're holding it the way I do, whenever I want to take a photo in like landscape mode, I'll accidentally put pressure on it, and then I'll see the setting pop up during my like viewfinder, right? As I'm taking the photo. And I will say the button itself, from a features perspective, is not fully complete yet either.
Oh, right.
Because Apple wants to introduce, what is it, a dual shutter, right? Where you would soft press to focus and then long press to take a photo, right? Similar to an experience like you would have on a camera.
Right.
Yeah. So that's not even here yet either at the time of us making this review.
Yeah. It was fun.
I knew he was gonna. I was so excited. I knew he was gonna go off on this take. I was so excited. I was like, you know what? I can't wait to hear what you have to say on it, because I knew that this is gonna be a big thing for David.
And overall, it is gonna be a great camera. I don't want to say that it's a terrible camera. I was just expecting more, especially because not a lot of the phone changed. So I was hoping that at least the camera would get a bigger bump, bigger improvement, bigger upgrade. But overall, it's not a bad camera.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I love accidentally launching my camera whenever I pushed a button and like accidentally triggering different settings
now you know.
as I'm going to take a photo. It's been awesome, man. I love it.
Now, jokes aside, we did have a lot of fun. It was a good phone. Let me clear that up. It was a good phone. It is a good phone.
It's an iPhone at the end of the day.
It really is. And we are primarily iPhone users, even though we use other products around the year and throughout the year. Primarily, we do main an iPhone as our main smartphone. So we were excited for this new phone. We were expecting more with this new phone, but that does not mean that it's a bad phone. The iPhone 15 Pro was a good phone. The 16 Pro is a good phone too. And that's what we want to get to. It's not that anything huge changed, but it doesn't make it bad. Ultimately, it comes really where you come from. And if you have a 15 Pro, it's probably not a good idea for you to upgrade.
Don't do it.
14 Pro, I don't even think you should upgrade.
Unless you want titanium.
That's the only thing.
Yeah.
And 13 Pro, that's such an amazing phone. I'll trade you and I'll take the 13 Pro.
Just for your battery life.
Exactly. But yeah, so I just want to clear that up. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think that threshold to upgrade to something like a 16 Pro is probably if you're at that like 2.5, 3 year-ish.
Right.
If you're at like 12 or 13, then it's gonna be, I think, pretty solid, right? But 14s and 15s, tough. Like
It's your call.
14 really stainless steel versus titanium.
Right.
15 definitely not. Do not trade in
Yeah.
your phone and get a 16
You'll
Pro.
still get Apple Intelligence too, so like you're
Yeah,
fine.
and actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because the thing I wanted to say about the 16 Pro specifically is that I have never seen a more iterative update from 15 Pro to 16 Pro. And also, as much as I hate to say something like this, it is an incomplete experience right now
It is
from
it
a
really
software
is.
perspective.
Yeah.
It's missing a lot, right?
That they announced as part of the phone
Yeah.
on their keynote.
Yeah, there is absolutely no semblance of Apple Intelligence here anywhere, and even
Right.
the really basic things like I mentioned earlier, there's not even the new Siri animation, which
Right.
that is
Right.
wild, right? And those things could potentially be months out. So
Oh yeah,
rushing,
there's no specific date.
yeah, so rushing to get a phone like this, especially if you, let's say, have last year's 15 Pro, I would absolutely not recommend it. I think you're in a really, really good spot to just wait and see what Apple does with the 17. The good news is that at least prices haven't changed.
Right.
16 Pro starts at $999 for 128 gigs of storage. Don't get me started on that. And then Pro Max starts at $1099, right?
$11.99.
$11.99, sorry,
Yeah.
for 256 gigs of storage.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as colors go, the new color this year is Desert Titanium, but you can still get it in natural black and white titanium as well. So, interesting phone.
Let us know what you think.
Interesting phone. Let us know what you think. Hit the like and subscribe button down below, especially if you're new. Now, we are very, very close at the time of making this video to 18,000.
18.
Right? 18,000 subscribers. And I just want to share a personal goal I have. 25,000 before the year is over. So if we can break 25,000 before the year is over, that would be amazing, right?
It would be great.
Yeah. So that's our goal. So if you're new here and you enjoyed it, obviously we have a lot more content coming too. So consider hitting the subscribe button, share with your friends and family, right? We're growing really, really well right now. And it makes me
And we're
really
thankful
happy.
because because you guys.
Yeah. We wouldn't be here without you guys watching and supporting. So we're definitely very thankful. And we'll see you guys very soon.
Till the next one.
Alrighty.
Later.
Peace.